Hey, Monday night. What's going on, folks? Another Monday. Let's see who jumps in, and I know there's a couple other streams going on tonight, so we'll see how that goes. Seems to be the pattern. We get too many streams and not enough time. Oh, we got Ben. How's it going, Ben? Nice to see you in here. We had a major marathon last night, 6 hours. That's incredible. Congratulations on the 100 or the 1,000 subs. That's quite the achievement, right? That's awesome. But yeah, that was a long stream, brother. I hung up for about, I think I lasted about 4 hours of it or whatever, but it was pretty good. Pretty good show. And who else we got in here? We've got Todd, aka Soda Pop. What's going on, brother? Always nice to see you. We got Jack Clark. Hey, Jack. Zach Thong, how's it going, brother? Ivan Carter, Lefty Mike. How are you guys? Guitarded. We've got a few folks in here tonight. That's good. I was just watching Guitar Hack's premiere thing there, the jam that he did. That's awesome. I like that band a lot. I like it more than the other one that he gigs with. Just not that the other one isn't good. It's just that I prefer the song choices of the one where his wife is singing, I believe. That's the one I guess the songs anyway. I like that better, and it seems to sound really good. And that new guitar, he seems to be gelling well with it, so that's awesome. So we'll give it a few minutes here, make sure everybody can pop in and see how that goes. Tonight we're going to be, I've gotten a lot of requests, as you know, in the past shows. This is episode number, what is it, number 8 already. So I've been doing these live streams every Monday night at 7:30. And over the past couple of weeks, we've been looking at all kinds of things. We've looked at the aux box from UA. We've looked at pedal setups. We've looked at, what else did we look at? We looked at, well, some guitar stuff. Obviously, we looked at the new Friedman and went through some stuff with that, and some recording stuff as well. But yeah, definitely. So tonight, with a lot of requests coming over the past few weeks for the Helix, we're going to take a closer look at that unit and basically go through some of my settings as far as the patch that I guess my favorite patch on it, the one that most, I guess, best represents my sound, I should say. We'll look how that's set up, and you know, how the Helix kind of works and sounds, and we'll play a little bit to see, you know, how it plays in a mix and so forth. So if you've got any questions regarding the Helix, I'll do my best to answer them. I'm not an expert. I know a lot about it, and I've tweaked it quite a bit and gotten to a point where I'm happy with it. But there's definitely people on the web that have a lot more detailed information on the unit and probably can push it further than I can. But I'll do my best to answer any questions. Hey, Jason Wade's in the house, moderator, awesome. Laz Guitar, hey bud, nice to see you. Yeah, so Guitar Hack, hey man, how's it going? Enjoyed your stream earlier, that was good. Yeah, so about the way we'll look at the Helix, we'll look at the board itself. So I'm pretty sure you've all seen it online and everywhere else, but I'll show you how I set it up as far as the stomp box and I guess how I set up the pedals and so forth. And we'll look at the software itself, so you can see the whole path and I guess the effects and stuff that I've added to my path to give it the sound that it has. Other than that, it was a pretty good week last week. I mean, the week before I was pretty sick, so I didn't do too much playing, and then I did the show on Monday night. I was still feeling it sick-wise, so but we got through that show. And this week I've been playing a lot more and got a lot better. By Thursday I was pretty good. So I did a live stream on Friday night where I was testing out some stuff with the mixer and jam tracks and so forth, and that was a good time. We had about 25 people or so in the live stream, and I think we went for about 2 hours and jammed a bunch of stuff. The funny thing is that I was jamming with some backing tracks, but I also jammed along with some real tracks. So I put Metallica for a couple of songs, jammed along with that. And then I put an AC/DC song called Problem Child, and I played the SG and I jammed along with that. It sounded awesome and it was fun, but YouTube flagged it right away. I think an hour after the stream went up, I got a notification through my email saying that your video is blocked worldwide because of AC/DC publishing or whatever doesn't allow you to use their song. So what I did is I had to go into the settings of that video, and it said you can either remove the song or the audio for that song, and then it'll reprocess it, which is what I did. So now the video is available. But yeah, be careful with that stuff. I guess if you're playing along with tracks or doing stuff on YouTube with actual artist tracks, most of the time you get away with it, where if like the Metallica songs were okay that I used, but it said that if any revenues are made from this video, a portion of that will go to the publishing Metallica, I guess. So that's fine. It's not like I get tons of views on those anyway, so I'm not making any money, so it doesn't bother me. But sometimes you'll get an artist, like I think the Eagles are pretty bad with that stuff, and I guess AC/DC, which I wasn't aware of, won't allow you to use their song at all. So just be aware. It doesn't affect your status, it just blocks the video until you remove that song from the video. So it is what it is, but keep that in mind if you're doing any types of backing tracks or playing along with songs and stuff online. Let's see, do we have anybody? All right, so what I usually do on my Monday show is we cover a news item, and this week I just saw one thing come up which was kind of interesting as far as a news item, and it was music related. So we'll have a quick look at that first, and we won't spend a lot of time there because I'd like to dive into the Helix discussion and go through some of that stuff, and then answer any questions, and then we can have whatever discussion that you guys want to have after that. So that should be pretty good. And I'm trying to think of anything else that I can share with you from last week. Nothing major. As far as guitars that I've been playing the most, I think the Friedman Strat and the Les Pauls have been the ones that I've been playing mostly this week. So that's where I am with that. And I really enjoy the aux a lot, so I've got that pretty much dialed in with the I should call it Mesa. For some reason, I got called out on that online. Being Canadian, I guess I say Mesa for the amp, and it should be Mesa. So there you go. I got corrected, and I guess it's Mesa. But yeah, my Mesa amp is really cool and working well. Hey, Bam Aussie, you made it. Nice to see you. I know that it's late where you are, and you always try to catch live streams, which is awesome. The other thing I tried this week, which was kind of interesting, I think it was last night or whatever, I tried going live on Facebook with this setup here, and for the most part it worked fine. I still need to tweak some stuff, but I've got quite a large audience on Facebook because of SMEER, the band SMEER. We have our own page there, and we've got a pretty good following there. So I figured, let me try going live on there once in a while to see what the traction is and how that experience is. And so I did that yesterday for about 20 minutes, and yeah, within 5 minutes or whatever, I had like a ton of people in there, over 40 people, which is insane for, you know, going live for the first time on Facebook. But I do have over, I think, 1,000 people following us on there, so I might do more of that. I don't know, there's only so many things that you can do and so much time, and I also have to record a bunch of stuff and do some original stuff that I want to do before the end of the year. So gotta manage your time when you're doing this stuff. Quentin James, Quentin, there's your shout out, Quentin. Nice to see Quentin. I hear Quentin on Nocturnal Butterflies show quite often. I enjoy that show. I like jumping in there and listening. There's some cool topics that they talk about. It's pretty fun. And Nocturnal Butterfly is Eric from EVH and Gear TV network. His wife, and she has her own show, which is just no video, just audio, but it's still a lot of fun. So if you ever get a chance to check that out once in a while, go for it. And then Quentin is usually on that show, and it's always fun. Gussie Wells, how's it going, Gussie? And let's see, did I miss anybody? I don't think so. I think I've got everybody. We've got a few people in here now, which is awesome. Okay, let's look at the first news item. And the way the news item is today is just it's a video. I think it's a 3-minute video that will tell you what the news story is. After that, we can have a quick discussion on it. I found it quite, I guess, funny, or ironic, I guess, is the better choice of words for this story. And but you'll see. You'll see what I mean. So let's go to that.
News of the weird. Today on Rock Feed, every rock fan has either seen School of Rock or is generally aware of what it is. The cult classic movie featuring Jack Black features the Tenacious D frontman serving as a teacher to kids and teaching them to play instruments, where they eventually go on to perform shows together. It's an iconic film, especially for those who love rock music. Well, unfortunately for one former star, that actor is not putting his musical skills to good use, as he has been accused and arrested 4 times in the last 5 weeks for allegedly stealing multiple guitars. It's unclear what his fixation is on taking these guitars, but it's fascinating. You see him here with Jack Black in the movie, and you've got his various mugshots over this time. It's quite sad to see, no doubt. According to police, it says Joey is making a habit of going into stores that sell musical equipment. He then allegedly proceeds to ask to test the guitars out, and then he takes those instruments out without even paying a dime for them. Then eventually he's been accused of unloading those instruments at pawn shops. They say it all started earlier this year. He grabbed a blue Lespaul Epiphone Prophecy, which is valued at approximately $800. He got a black Fender Stratocaster worth around $699, and a Gibson Les Paul Gold top, the $1,900 price tag to boot. According to a report from TMZ, they say the actor blames a drug habit for his affinity for stealing multiple guitars, which is indeed sad if true. He did, though, in court enter a not guilty plea thus far for the thefts. He has yet to give a plea in that case of the stolen amplifier, which, of course, every guitar needs an amplifier. It makes you wonder if he specifically chose the guitars due to his previous role in the School of Rock films, or if there was some other underlying reason, but obviously this is sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, given the fact that he has a long history with guitars. That is all for now. Thanks so much for joining us today. You can check out these recommended videos, and don't forget to subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss out on breaking hard rock and heavy metal news. Thanks so much for joining us here today on Rock Feed, and we'll see you all very soon.
Oh, there you go. Quite interesting that this guy played a guitarist, or a child guitarist or whatever, and now he's he's stealing guitars. Yeah, he stole 4 guitars. And one of the videos I saw, it's quite hilarious. He walks into the music store, and the people are at the counter and they're serving somebody, but he'll walk in and then he'll look at some guitars on the wall. He'll grab one and he'll start kind of playing along with it and sit down for a second, and nobody's really paying much attention to him. And then he'll look around and he'll just pick up the guitar and walk right out of the store with it. And I think he's gotten caught every time, but he's done it 4 times. So I don't know what the deal is, but it's quite hilarious. And that, you know, the guy's well, I don't know how big of an actor he is today, but that was a pretty big movie back then. And you'd wonder why he would be doing that. But like some of you guys are saying in here, he must have a drug problem, or yeah, it could be, right? Who knows? But he just picks it right up, and no case or nothing, walks right out the door with it. And the guys are behind the counter looking, and they watch him go right by. And then within a couple of minutes, somebody grabs him. And but I think he got away with one of them, and I think he tried to sell it at a pawn shop or something like that. But yeah, man, I don't think I could ever do that. But I guess if you're desperate for money or attention, like Bam Ozzy's saying too, right? He could be not doing that well in his career, and when you've been on a certain high level as far as an actor or a rock star or something like that, and all of a sudden all that fame and everything else that goes along with it kind of disappears. You've had your 15 minutes. You might be looking for a way to get more attention and get back in the public eye, but that's kind of weird to do it that way. But yeah, and that's the other thing, like Guitar had said, you know, these days with all these cameras everywhere, him of all people should know that they're watching all these, everybody's watched 24/7, right? And he still did it. So anyway, I saw that story come across, and I kind of laughed, so I figured I'd tag that, and we could have a look at it tonight as one of the news items. But insane. I don't know if I'd ever do that. And some of the guitars he's picking, like, well, I guess the Epiphone was valued at $600 and something, but if you're going to go ahead and do that, I mean, I'd be looking at an R9 or something. A Lespaul is, you know, $6,000. If you're gonna go all out and, you know, make it worth your while. Just getting caught with you know, a lesser valued guitar that you can't do anything with doesn't really do anything. But anyway, I'm kind of going way past what we should be thinking about when we're doing something like that, and we shouldn't even be thinking of doing something like that. But some people, I guess it is what it is, right? But anyway, that's all I got for the news. So let's move to the Helix. What do you say? Is everybody on board with that? Hey Terry, how's it going? Sammy Hagar stole a guitar. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people did. Nikki Sixx did too, I think. I think I heard, what was the story with Nikki? He walked in with an empty guitar case, I think was the thing, and put a guitar in and walked out. But this was back in early 80s, right? There's no cameras or anything around, so some of them probably got away with it. Hey, Shauna Marie Sings is in the house. How's it going? Quentin says, do you have a lapel mic? Your voice sounds like it brought... Yeah, it's just a little lapel mic right here. And then it goes through the mixer, and then the mixer has a little bit of compression on it, and you just kind of set it to your liking, but I think it sounds okay. Bam Ozzy, I wonder if they will notice that the PRS private stock as I make my way. Yeah, really, right? I don't know. I think I'd go for a nice R0 or R9 Les Paul would be my guitar that I would probably try to grab if I was going to actually have the balls to do something like that. All right, Ben, take care. All right, so let's go right to the Helix. So the first, I'll just run the video for the Helix. It's just a 3-minute little promo video, and that's taken right from the Helix website. But it'll give you a good overview of, I'm sure you guys know what the Helix is, but it'll kind of give you a closer look at it. And then we'll go in to the rest of the demonstration and answer questions and see if everything works. I've got a camera set up down here to show the Helix a little closer and actual interface, and then the software obviously I can bring up on here and we can have a close look at it. So let's go right to the Helix video and see what that's all about.
I've been here for almost 4 years, and I can finally tell people what I've been working on.
We redesigned the user interface from scratch 3 times just because it wasn't fast enough.
Using your feet to edit sounds means that you can keep your hands on the guitar where they're supposed to be.
had to feel real. It had to feel like the head and the pedals were with you in the control room, and the speaker cat was just mic'd up out in the studio.
For the effects, we had to make standalone models of light bulbs, bucket brigade chips, and transistors.
With Helix, we have a very flexible I/O, so that you can incorporate any of your favorite pedals in your effects chain.
Loading third-party impulse responses was one of our top requested features.
We knew we wanted Helix to not only be beautiful, but it also had to be bulletproof.
In testing Helix, I've jumped on it, I've kicked it, I've dropped it. And it's a tank, it's withstood everything.
All right, so are you guys all still there? Something interesting just happened while I was playing that video, because I'm kind of monitoring my stream here, and it said we've detected a copyright audio and video in your stream, so your stream may be temporarily blocked. So let me know if you guys are still seeing everything, because if this stream goes down, I don't know what happens at that point. I know that I'll probably have to remove the audio from those parts after the stream is done, but I just don't know if it'll actually stay up while we're doing this. So let's hope that everything works. Yeah, so the warning just went off, but anyway. Let me know if you're still there. I'm here. All right, cool. So let's do this. I just want to make sure the guitar should be coming through. Yeah, so you guys should be able to hear that. Let me go to the camera that has the Helix. I think this one here. So the way that I've got the camera set up right now is that it only shows part of the Helix. I have the Helix LT, which is the same as the regular Helix, except it doesn't have the little channel strips that go under those buttons, that has a lot more detail and things like that, right? But it's the same engine, it has all the same amps and all the same sounds and everything. So that's fine for me for that, and I guess it's about $700 or $800 cheaper than the full Helix, and it's only got a few little things that are different, but for the most part they're the same. So you'll notice that on the window here, like where you'll see like two blue boxes, a green and an orange. The way you can set up the Helix is that all these switches down there, I guess they go in conjunction with these 8 boxes you see in the graphic, and you can set it up that they're all preset. So my clean, like number 1 down there, right below the first blue box, you'll see something called clean, and what that is when I click on the clean, that basically triggers a couple of pedals that work in conjunction and give you that sound for that preset. So you could set all 8 of these as different ones. You could have clean, you could have lead, you could have rhythm, you could have super lead, you could have tremolo sound or whatever, and they all have a series of pedals that go on and off. But at that point, see, somebody like Guitar Hack that plays in a cover band, these types of units are like great for that stuff, because you could essentially have a couple of presets set up for all your sets. So set 1, you could have like song 1, and that would have its own little preset, and it would have exactly the sound for that song, and you can dial it in like insanely close. And you just bring this unit. I think if I was playing in a cover band today, I would probably be using something like this and running it straight into a mixing console or something like that, and probably have like maybe a powered speaker on stage to get my audio or so forth, right? Todd, aka Soda Pop, I have the Helix LT. So let me look here and see if I can bring up the actual patch. So what we see here is basically the software that you run. You can run the Helix just by running it from the board, like setting up your pedals and all your sounds and your settings right from there. But the real key to this unit is loading up the software and going through the presets and adding all your pedals and your patches and so forth. So essentially what we have is, if you'll see this, I think you guys can see my mouse moving on there, but basically you've got the input, which on the input you can put an input gate. You can turn that on or off and then set the actual, I guess, sensitivity of that gate. So if I turn that, let me just turn the guitar up here. See how I get that static? But I just bring that up, and you know, right about there is good. Right about there is good. And then I save that so that and this is a patch that I call SG, which is my standard patch that I like for majority of the stuff that I do with the Helix. And then you start layering your pedals. Like, this is basically a guitar chain, the whole thing right through. So the first pedal I've got set up here is a wah. And I'll tell you one thing about the Helix and the wah. For me, it's the best wah that I've ever played, whether it's analog or digital or whatever. The Helix wah, for some reason, I'm not the only one that says this. If you listen to a lot of people that use the Helix and the Axe effects and all kinds of stuff, they swear by this wah. It's really throaty and really dynamic. So I really love this wah. But you do have in the settings down here, you've got a multitudes of wah that you can choose. So you could, you know, if you don't like the throaty one, you could choose a different one, and they're all modeled, I guess, with, you know, different companies in mind, I suppose. But you play around, and then you've got a ton of settings here that you can adjust that wah with. You could even set it so that when you've got it activated and you're playing along with it, that if you take your foot off the wah, after a couple of milliseconds, it'll turn itself off, so you don't actually have to click it off if you were playing and didn't want to have to do that. So there's a ton of flexibility with that type of thing, where you can really dial it in and make it do some stuff where you're, you know, kind of automate your stuff a little bit more as well. So what I like to do is I put my wah in, and then I've got a compressor, and this is a 3-band compressor. And with the compressor being right, I have 2 compressors in this whole chain. You'll see that I have one at the end, and that one at the end is always on, which basically I'll explain why once we get there. But the one in the first part of the chain, I only have it on, I believe, in the crunch sound. I put it on for right now. You know, let me put it on the clean. So if I go, yeah, I just have it on the clean sound, and then my distortion sound, I don't put that wah on. And then I move on, and I've got a couple of drive pedals. So right now I'm on the clean patch of the clean setting of this patch, so I don't have these engaged, but there's 2 distortion pedals. One is an actual distortion, I believe. Well, this is a tube screamer, an 808, and then I've got a kinky boost, which just kind of boosts the signal a little bit. So I've got those 2, and depending on where I set, if I go to the rock setting or the crunchy setting or the lead setting, one of these will be engaged automatically. So that's the nice thing about the Helix, is right now I'm on the clean patch, and on the clean patch, anything that's highlighted, so you can see this isn't highlighted, this one is, anything you can kind of, I don't know if you can see it on your screen, it's kind of probably hard for you to see, but there's stuff that looks like a little faded. They're not activated. So when I hit the clean channel, that stuff doesn't get activated, only the stuff that is there. So it's kind of cool where you can set up, my clean sound has a compressor, it has a chorus, it has a couple of things, and as soon as I hit that button to go to the clean, all that stuff gets enabled and you're off and running, right? So the clean sound basically, let me just see if I've got that. So let's see, it's nice and clean. And right now I don't have any chorus or anything like that, but I do have chorus pedals and tremolo pedals in that patch. So if I want to, the way that I've got my Helix set up is I can enable chorus right off my board. So I can see that I've got 4 pedals that I can turn on and off at any time on here. So let's say the chorus, if I want to put some chorus in there, I'll just hit that. Tune. So see, you've got a little bit of chorus there, you can add that. I've got a univibe set up in this patch, so and the effects in this unit are very, very good, man. They are like, for me, especially if I'm recording, I go to the Helix for clean. I use my Mesa and my, let's say it right, Mesa. I use my Mesa and my aux for the majority of the distortion and the rhythm parts that I record. But when it comes to doing clean stuff, I find the Helix to be the way to go. I can just get it nice and clean, and then I can add whatever effect, and I can record with that effect. I don't need to add it after the fact. So I'm kind of, some people like to record dry and add plugins in their recording software and add the effects they want, but I kind of prefer if you can get the sound right off the bat and play along with it, then you're way ahead of the game. Anyway, let's go back to the software here. And so the amp that I've got set up, my favorite amp in the whole Helix setup, and there are tons of amps. I mean, there's everything from Friedman stuff to Marshall stuff to Mesa to Fender. I mean, they're all there and they're very accurately modeled. The thing with the amp simulations, guys, it's not that you're going to pick one of them and it's going to sound like right like that amp, or it's going to be, you know, instant. You really got to tweak the settings, and the best resource I can give you as far as when it comes to setting amps in Helix is a guy named Jason Sedite. He goes into a lot of detail as far as here's how you can get a Marshall Plexi sound. So you load up the Marshall Plexi model, and then he goes through setting by setting and tells you where things should, that he puts it at with his guitar, and then you get that sound. Obviously for me, I take that setting and I bring it and then I tweak it to my liking, which is usually just a little different than his, not a whole lot different, but it'll get you like so close to where you need to be. So this amp here is basically, oh, well, here's the other thing. I've got 2 amps set up in this patch. So I forgot to tell you this. You can set up multiple amps in the same patch. So for my clean sound here, I've got a Jazz Rivet 120. So it's basically like a Roland 120. So it's a beautiful clean amp, right? So I've got that in there, and that's what's engaged right now. But if I go to my crunch sound, it'll turn off that amp and it'll turn on this one, which is basically a Plexi model. And you'll notice that that amp has tons, all the settings are there, like your treble, bass, your normal drive, your bright drive, your channel volume presence, even sag and hum and all that. I know a lot of guys don't want to tend to go into those settings that deep, but like when you watch Jason's video and you follow along and you set it up like he does, he gets you pretty close to there, and then you can play around with the sag and hum and ripple and bias if you want to. I tend to play a little bit with that, but I usually don't go too deep in that stuff. But you can get it really, you know, really close. And the thing that's nice with sag and ripple and stuff like that, it's basically what your tubes do in a tube amp, right? So it gives you that spongier sound and a little bit of a compression that you get out of a tube amp. Well, that's what these settings are really geared to do, and give you more or less of that if that's what you're looking for. So for me on this patch, I like to use the Plexi amp, and then I've got a couple of things. So when I go to my crunch sound, or I guess my rock sound they call it, and it sounds like this. So that's kind of my, I call it my rock setting on this patch. And when I hit that, it basically enabled the Plexi amp, and then it turned on my tube screamer. And what else I always keep my reverb on. I like reverb. And then I've got a couple of EQs set up here that kind of, and the cool thing is that you can set up your EQs, you've got them there, or anything actually. And every time, like, how can I explain this? If I hit the crunch sound, I can have different settings in my EQ for the crunch, and then if I go to my rock sound, I can have the same EQ, but the settings on the EQ will change. I can set them up per snapshot, they call it. So you can really do a lot of cool stuff with that, where you might get your EQ set up perfectly for your lead sound, but instead of adding another EQ for the same patch, you can keep the same EQ, but just what you do is, let's see, can you see my mouse? So let's say on this amp, I have bright drive turned up to 8.2 here, and that's in my rock. But if I go to my crunch sound, you should see that change to something else. Yeah, see, my bright drive went to 9. I didn't change the model or the amp or anything. It's the same amp, but the setting on the amp changed. And then I go back to my rock sound, and then it goes back to whatever settings. You can do that for every pedal in your chain. So you might want an EQ that's set up for every setting, clean, rock, crunch, and lead, but every time you hit the different crunch, lead, or whatever, the EQ will change its settings as you need them. So it's pretty versatile with that stuff. Let me see. So yeah, so that's the amp model. Now the key with the Helix, I'll tell you right now, is IRs. And what you need to do, you can use the cab simulations and the stuff that comes built into the Helix, and it has a lot of cabs and things that are available to you, but you're going to get the best results with IRs, and IRs are impulse responses, and you can buy those in packs or whatever. I got mine from Celestion.com, and I've bought some from a place called Onammer as well. So what that is in one patch you might, or in one package that you buy from them, you might have a couple of 412 cabs, a couple of 212 cabs, 410s, whatever, you know, whatever's in that package. And along that package, it also has different mics that come with it. So I've loaded up an IR here. So I've got 2 IRs loaded up in this patch. So it's like I'm running a stack. So the first IR is a 412 cab, and then you've got low cut and high cut on that cab, so you can adjust that per your liking. And I always kind of do a low cut and a high cut anyway, just because I can take out some of the fizziness if I have too much of that. And then you can set the level of that IR. The way that this IR is set, it looks like it has vintage 30s, and it's got a Royer 121 on it. And then the other cab that I have loaded up here is another 412 with an SM57 on it. So I've got 2 mics running on these cabs, and then I blend, you know, you can blend that sound as much or as little as you want. So my first line here has got my kind of my distortions, my amp, and my cabs. And that's how I set that part up. But then you drop down to the next line where you have, what happens is anything after the amp is like you're running something in the effects loop. So that's where I put my modulation, like my chorus, my univibe, delays, reverb, and then I put my EQs in my effects loops as well. And at the end of the chain, I like to have another compressor to kind of take the whole sculpted tone, the whole sound, and then add whatever amount of compression I want to the whole thing to kind of even everything out, right? So to me, it works best. And again, every pedal here has its own settings, and when you enable snapshot mode, I can say, okay, well, for my rock setting, I want my peak reduction on my compressor to be at 5.3, but if I go to my lead setting, I want that peak reduction to be, I don't know, 7 point something maybe. And I can set that, and then once I save it, it's saved. So anytime I hit on that sound, all these settings take effect, right? So it's super flexible. I mean, you can dive as deep as you want into this. I mean, I touched the surface of it. There's so many other things I could do with it, but I like to keep it as simple as possible. I like to find a couple of patches that I tweak to my liking, because I kind of have a sound that I go to whether I'm playing a real amp or playing digital modeling, and I try to stay within that realm. That's where I'm comfortable with. So with this patch, I'd say on Helix I've got 3 patches that I go to. Those are my go-to patches, but I've got hundreds to choose from if I want to. I could build, like I said, if I played in a cover band, I could build one set of presets, maybe 30 presets in there, and every preset would be for a specific song. So song 1 of set 1, here you go, I hit it. All my sounds for that song are there. I don't need to be pedal jumping and this and that, you know, just here, I just need this sound, I click on it, and everything is activated for that song, and I get exactly that sound. So makes a lot of sense for those people that are playing in that type of environment, and which is why you're seeing a lot of the big bands and stuff playing live with these things, because they can set it up and get that exact sound. I still, you know, people tell me all the time, well, you know, what do you prefer if you had to only have one thing? What would you, you know, what do you prefer playing through? I prefer personally playing through an amp just because of the feel of it. But I have no problems playing through a Helix anytime I want, because I can set it up to have very close to the same feel. It's a little different, but it's not a huge difference. So that's just my opinion. I know a lot of people kind of go, oh, it's modeling and it's not going to feel the same, or it's not going to sound the same. I don't know. I think you're wrong. So when I'm playing, when I'm playing right now, it probably, like in my headphones, it sounds pretty good. It might sound a little thin maybe, or a little bit more treble when you're hearing it through YouTube. And the reason I've got it set that way is because if I'm using this patch in a recording, in a mix, I need it to be that way. Otherwise, if I made it way too bassy in the mix, it would basically take the frequency part from the actual bass guitar, and it would just sound like mud and stuff. So I try to set up my patches, even though I might not be jamming or playing with a bunch of like instruments or a backing track. If I'm just playing by myself, I still want to get used to to that sound, because that's how I'm going to play it. It's playing it in a mix and recording with it, so I want it to sound as close as possible to that. So you might say, well, it sounds a little thin, but if I play it with a track, and maybe we can try that. So you'll see that. Let me just shut my mic here for a second. All right, so I'm just gonna tune quickly here just to make sure. All right, just bear with me here. I'm just gonna tune this thing quickly. We've got so much temperature change that everything changes. All right. All right, let me see if I can put a backing track and play along with it so you hear it in context of a mix, right? And that's important, because when you set up your patches, you can set them up so that you're just jamming along in the room here and you're just kind of having fun, just a guitar by itself. But as soon as you put it in with a backing track or a mix, if you've got it set up with way too much bass and stuff, it's just not going to sit well in the mix. So that's what you should keep in mind when you're making your patches and setting up for this type of thing. Let me see if this will play. Anyway, you get the point. Let's see. Sound less bright without the mic and string. Yeah, exactly. So the other thing, if you're doing these live streams and playing guitar along with it, the way that I've got my mic set up, I can just hit this button and it mutes me. So it's best if you've got a mic on you or in front of you that you can mute the mic when you're playing guitar, right? So that you don't, right now you can probably hear that stuff, and when you're playing along. See what I mean? So yeah, so I definitely recommend muting a mic if you're playing along with that stuff. So again, with the Helix, the way that I like to set it up is I like to put, let me go back to this shot here. I like to put a couple of pedals that I can turn on and off no matter what setting I'm on, and whether I'm clean, crunch, lead, or whatever. The pedals that I like to have access to at all times are chorus, vibe, tube screamer, and I believe what's the other one? Oh, one of them is the green one is a delay, and then the other one is a tube screamer. So I like to have, you know, access to those at all times so I can turn them on and off. But when I hit one of these presets or whatever, some of these things will go on automatically depending on the sound that I'm looking for. Yeah, so it's a great unit. Right now I'm running 2.60 as a software. They already have, I think they're releasing 2.8 very soon, which will, what they do is when they release new software upgrades to it, they give you more pedals, they give you different amps, they give you a little bit more stuff that, like with the cabs and mics and stuff like that, and they also tweak the actual existing ones as well. So sometimes you'll have an amp that you love and they can change it a little bit to make it a lot, you know, more usable, right? So that part is really cool. But again, it is a digital interface, so I wouldn't say the learning curve is very hard or long, but there is definitely a learning curve, because if it's not something you've ever tried or played with. But I wasn't, like I said, I just got back into guitar last year, and I was completely out of music, and I wasn't, like, even though I'm a tech guy, I wasn't in the music tech at all. I kind of lost touch with all of that stuff. And when I played in a band, I played bass, and my setup was basically an Ampeg 8x10 with an Ampeg tube head and maybe a compressor pedal or something like that. That was it. So even back then I wasn't using any of this stuff, and I was able to get this and be up and running within a couple of days. I had my head around it, and I was able to tweak it and do all kinds of cool stuff with it. So if I can do that, then anybody can do it, right? And there's so many resources out there online to help you get started. Like, I would highly suggest checking out Jason Sedite's channel if you're into Helix or the Stomp or all these Line 6 products, because he goes into depth about how to do this, and you can even download some of his already created patches, and then you can tweak them to your liking. That's what I did with this one. I didn't download it, but I watched his video on a Plexi setup, and I kind of followed his direction and got it to a place where I liked it, and then added, you know, my own stuff to it if I needed something different that wasn't there. So let me just go back here to the chat a little bit to make sure. I'm kind of keeping an eye on it, but I might have missed some stuff here. Let's see, go back, everything looks good. Todd says, Brian, do you program your own drums? I do when I'm recording my original stuff, and I use a program called Easy Drummer 2 is the one that I use. And it's not really, well, it's kind of programming, but the program is really easy to use. And it's basically real loops of drummers that went into studio and they recorded the actual patterns and stuff like that. And I kind of pick a pattern, and then I build on that, and, you know, add my fill. There's fills, there's different, you can set the velocity of the drum hit and everything, right? So I really like that program. But as far as programming drums, like with a little pad and doing all that stuff, I don't do that. Let's see. Zach said it sounds good, great tone, awesome. Yeah, I really like the tone that I get out of the Helix. And the other thing with the Helix, being that it's digital, it has a USB, and you can plug that directly into a computer, and it can become an audio interface, so you can record right from it. and you know, go right into your recording software. Or in this case, if you're doing live streaming and stuff, you can go directly from your Helix to your streaming software if you're using something like OBS or something, and use it as a sound input, which would greatly improve your sound. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm going into a mixer and into an audio interface, and the audio interface is what's feeding out to you guys. But there is like, I've listened back to my streams and I don't hear a lot of that compression that YouTube puts in. You know, it sounds like that underwater sound or whatever. And that's because probably I'm using software here. Like I use Wirecast, which is kind of like the same thing as if you were using OBS. But I bring in my sound card in there, and then I stream directly out of that. And I've been complimented quite a few times on the tone and the guitar sounds when I'm live on air with it. So that makes a big difference, because I know some guys just go direct with Google Hangouts or whatever, and they just try playing. They plug their guitar into even an interface using Google Hangouts or whatever, and then you get that underwater sound and that compressed sound. So I don't know. I think it has something to do with the actual software, like Wirecast or OBS. But if you go direct from a Helix into OBS, you're going to get the best of both worlds, and you're probably going to get some really good sound. Let's see. Am I missing anything? Jason Wade says, got me a 2019 Gibson Les Paul Jr. DC Tribute, just like guitar did, same color too. Awesome. I don't think I saw that one. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Let's see. And a Taylor Mini GS. Okay. Taylor Mini GS. Yeah, I don't have an acoustic. I should get one someday. I had one for a while. I had a Taylor, and I actually sold it because I was buying something else, I guess, and I wasn't playing it much, but sold it last year. Jason Wade says, I just play over already made backing tracks, the ones that inspire me to play, that is, I can't force it. Yeah, and that's key, right? Once you find, I like playing a lot over blues stuff, or some of these heavier ones or whatever. They're just kind of rocking stuff that I can, you know, just wail over a little bit and do some stuff. But yeah, there's tons of them out there, and if you find, some of them are good, some are, you know, so-so, but experiment and find some stuff. Todd Flowers says, oh man, I just sold a Mahogany GS Mini. Wow. Okay. Jason Wade. Chad Boston and EVH Gear TV are great resources as well with the Helix. Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, there are a couple of really good channels out there that cover the Helix in depth. So, you know, Jason Sedite, Eric from EVH, Chad Boston is another one. What's his name? The guy that plays for Blue Oyster Cult. I'll think of his name, but he's really good as well, and he uses a Helix all the time, and that's what he uses as his live rig, playing with Blue Oyster Cult, right? So, and he has that thing dialed. Let's see. Jason says, Helix owners also get a very drastic price cut on Helix Native as well. I mean, oh really? I don't have Helix Native installed on my, because I just use this one. If you've got a Helix, I guess you just use the Helix hardware and the software on your desktop, but I don't use that as a plugin or anything. But I heard that the newer versions of the Helix software native, I think, or whatever, is really good. Some of the ones that came out previously, or the first ones, weren't as good, but now they've got it dialed in pretty good. So, hey EVH, there he is. We were just talking about you. I heard the Helix bat signal, and it led me here. Yeah, exactly. We just went through a lot of the settings and how it works and some of the sounds. So, but I think I saw Eric said Richie Castellano. That's who it is. If you have a chance, check out his channel. He does a lot of stuff with the Helix, and he'll play like a full, like he'll do a live stream, and he'll have all his instruments set up and basically running loops. and he'll play stuff like Rush and all kinds of things, and he's just using his Helix, and it's all set up for those sounds, and it sounds amazing. Some guys really know how to dial this stuff in. Again, I just touched the surface of it. I think that if I wanted to, I could really do a lot more with it. I kind of use it for my needs, so I try to keep it as simple as possible, but still get the tone that I like, so when I'm playing that I feel comfortable, that it inspires me to play and stuff. So I've got it set up that way. But I mean, you could get into this and do some really cool stuff. Even the hookups on it, like how you route things, and you could add your real pedals to it as well, which is kind of cool. So maybe you've got a couple of analog pedals that you really love and you don't want to get rid of. You can actually incorporate them in the Helix. The Helix has something called effects blocks, I believe they're called, or send and return blocks, and you add them on, just like on here you see I've got a distortion. You could put that as a send receive block there, and you would plug your pedal into the send and receive loop of the Helix, turn your pedal on, and then you could activate it with the Helix, and then you've got that incorporated into your sound. So you can do quite a bit of things that give you tons of flexibility. Let's go down the line here and see if I missed anything. Sorry if I missed anything in the chat, guys. I'm getting a little better at following the chat and doing all this stuff, but it's still a challenge for me to try to focus on delivering the content and getting through all the stuff that I want to talk about, but keeping track of the chat as well. But I'm getting better. I think it'll get better as time. I think native is down to like 99 bucks, and native is basically a plug-in version of the Helix where you could just load it up in Logic or whatever, and you'd have essentially the same interface that I'm looking at here with the pedals and stuff, and you'd add them on and stuff. So I've never tried it, so I don't know if it's exactly the same sounds. I'm assuming it would be, but I mean, you could always try it. And for 99 bucks, you would have a library of effects and settings and amps, and I mean, you couldn't go wrong with that. It's the same thing that Steve from Boston, he does with what is it called, THU, I believe, and he gets some great sound, and you could get the same type of thing with Helix Native, I'm sure of it. And you could even go further if you wanted to. Todd says, I have a Boss eBand JS10. So do I need a mixer or audio interface unit to record a good sound? Well, you don't need a mixer. You do need an audio interface though, and I'm not saying you need like a real expensive one. You can get a nice Focusrite, just a 2-channel Focusrite for, I don't know, maybe 100 and something, maybe 200. But with that, you're up and running, and you can plug your Helix right into that, and in your DAW or your recording software, you just choose your track and you're off to the races. My setup here is I like going through the mixer just because I've got so many things that I want plugged into the mixer, and when I want to access that thing, let's say I want to play bass, well, I just hit the button to activate that channel and my bass is already plugged in and everything, and I'm off and running with that. If I want to play the Helix, I'm plugged into a specific channel and I hit that. So there's all kinds of ways you can set it up, but yeah, I definitely think you need an audio interface. Well, you don't need it. If you've got a Mac computer or something, I'm sure you could just plug USB and the Helix USB into your computer, and it would probably sound okay. But I would recommend anybody that's getting into this on any level to invest in a small interface at least. Let's see. Jason says EVH network, it is if you own a Helix already. Oh, for the price you mean, the $99. Yeah, maybe. Current native is zero difference from any of the Helix products, 100% same. Okay, so if that's the case, man, like, guys, invest 99 bucks and get it if you don't want to go out and then buy the full hardware version of the Helix or the Stomp or whatever, because it'll get you some great sounding effects and some sounds there just using the plugin. Bam Ozzy says Glenn Delone is a great, yes, Glenn has some great resources and some great content. Glenn Delone is his name, yeah. I actually downloaded or bought one of his packages, and in the package he has a bunch of presets that he basically built, and I've used some of his that are really, really good. Again, any one of these people out there that you're buying presets from, whether it's Jason Sedite or Glenn Leone or Richie Castellano or whatever, just remember that you're hearing them play it through their guitar, it's their hands and everything, so it's going to sound a little different when you install it on your machine and you play through them. So you will still have to tweak stuff. It's rare that I've loaded up a patch that said, hey, here's Zach Wild patch or whatever, and I load it up and it's that Zach Wild sound. It's close, but I still have to tweak it to get to my, you know, because your playing is different, your guitars are different, all that stuff, your environment's different. So you still got to tweak them, but you get, you know, 80 to 90% there without, you know, much effort, which is good. Correction. Okay, so we've got a correction here. AVH and TV Network says if you own the Helix Floor LT, Rack, Helix Effects, or Stomp, you get native for $99. But if you don't own one of those, I'm assuming it's probably a little bit more expensive than the $99. So yeah, so it's all whatever you want to do, right? If you want to get it, because again, I don't know what the price is if you don't own one of these units. Bam Ozzy says, I have a JS 10.2. It's easier for the front room. Okay. The Jace has a built-in audio. Does the Jace S10 have a built-in audio interface? JS10. I'm trying to think of what that unit is. I think Bam has one. Bam Ozzy might be able to answer that question better than I can. Let's see. Same here, Brian. I run a 16-channel board as my interface. Yeah, well, for me, in my current studio environment, the board is kind of a nice addition, and I didn't have one until probably a month ago is when I added the board, and it just makes things a lot easier, so I can route all my cables and everything. And I've got a couple of switches in front of me, so if I want to go from the Helix to the amp to the bass, I just hit that, and it cycles through. It's almost like an amp switcher. So yeah, just try to make it as convenient as possible to work in the studio, right? So it's about making things convenient and the workflow efficient that'll get you up and running and get you playing more, because you're not constantly changing, oh, this cable's got to go here and that's got to go there, oh no, I got to set that up because I want to play that. So if you've got a lot of things going on in your studio, if you've only got an amp and a mic, it's pretty simple. You're off and running. You just plug it into your interface and you go. But when you've got a lot of sources and a lot of things going on, sometimes a mixer makes more sense and you can just have everything set up and ready to go. Jason says, after I fix, oh, he's talking to Todd. Okay, sorry about that. Let's see, Guitar Hack says, dumb question, but what is the cost of a Helix and HX Stomp? So HX Stomp is the smaller unit. It has the same engine as the Helix and the Helix LT, and but it's just a smaller box, so you don't have 6 switches, you only have 3, but you can do a hell of a lot. The other thing with the Helix Stomp is, as you see my interface, or on the screen here, the software, these blocks, every effect is a block. On the Helix Stomp, you can put a total of 6. On the Helix and the Helix LT, the bigger units, you can put, like, I don't know how many tons of them. But with the Helix Stomp, you've got a total of 6, but you can still do it. Like I can make a patch with just 6 of these things here and get awesome tones. So the price of the Stomp, I believe, is $7.99, and the Helix LT right now, you could probably pick them up for about $1,100 maybe, around that. And then the full Helix, if you want the full version of it, I think it's about $1,600 or $1,700 right now. So that's where the price. Look around a little bit, you can probably find some different specials and things. But yeah, the Helix Stomp, I was thinking of getting one just because of its size, but I've already got the Helix LT, and I'm a studio guy more than anything, so it's not like I'm going out there with jamming and everything. If I was jamming on a regular basis and going to whatever, I might get a Stomp just so I can put it in a bag and take my guitar in the other bag and off I go, and just plug directly into a PA or an amp. And that's the other thing with these Helix things. I've got a Mesa, sorry, I gotta remember to say it right, Mesa 212 cab there. If I want to, I could buy just a little power amp like the Pedal Baby by Orange, or I know that Seymour Duncan or somebody makes another little power amp that is made to take pedals. And you can take one of those and plug it right into your cabinet and plug your Helix into that, and you've got your rig, and you've got every sound in the world available to you, and you're still playing through a guitar cabinet, which will give you the feedback and stuff of a speaker, a real speaker. So that's the other thing you could do. Or you can go right into a PA. And a lot of guys are using in-ears, right? So they can go right into the PA and just get in-ears as their monitor, and they can tweak the exact level that they want. But again, it's all like Guitar Hack for you, playing live, playing multiple sets, multiple types of music. It might make sense to get something like that where you, at home, you set up your 3 sets worth of music in the Helix and there you go. Like, here's set 1, preset 1 maybe is your first song, and that first song will have a, you know, a crunch, a lead, and a clean, but it is exactly like the song, so you can set up your chorus and everything to make it sound exactly like that song. And then song number 2, you hit preset number 2, and then it has all the settings for that song. So it makes sense for stuff like that, I think. Let's see, what did I miss? Sorry, the chat just jumped a little bit here. Bam Audi says, I don't think you need one, as you can just plug the guitar into the Helix as a foot pedal and into the JS10 as an amp. Yeah, okay. Okay, so there's, Eric just put the price up for the Helix floor, and the LT is cheaper. I bought the LT, and when I bought the LT, yeah, it was $13.99. I think you can get it lower than that. Sometimes you can find them used, right? Some guys will buy them and it's maybe overkill or whatever, and they sell it off right away, so you can save some money that way. The Helix Stomp is about 800 Canadian at Long and Quaid. Yeah. Bam Aussies, you need an audio interface to get your guitar into a computer. Yeah, and the thing is with the Helix, whether it's the Stomp or the LT or whatever, it has a USB right on it, so it can act as your interface as well. And the other thing that's cool with the Helix is it has a bunch of bass stuff in it too. So I've got a couple of presets that are just built for bass, so I can, you know, have an SVT 810 with an Ampeg head with the compressor, I can't even speak now, compressor pedal built in, and I can get my bass sound out of that and record directly from that. So you can do a multiple, very flexible, right? You need one guitar. Yeah, Laz Guitar says you need one Guitar Hack. Guitar Hack says gas sucks. Yeah. Yeah, let's see. Jason says that's why I'm getting the HS Stomp. Not enough real estate for the Helix LT. Yeah, I think the Stomp is a great deal, and it's a great unit as well. People get kind of freaked out that you can only put 6 blocks on it, but you'd be amazed what you can do with 6 blocks. Like, you can put a you know, maybe an amp, an IR, a couple of distortion pedals, a chorus, you know, and or a delay or a reverb or something, and you're good to go. You can do quite a bit. And keep in mind, that's just one preset, so you can load up tons of presets, and every preset can have 6 other blocks on it, and you can tweak it to your heart's content. Whatever I get has to be bulletproof for gigs. Yeah, no, I hear you, Hack. It's not, you do a lot of gigging, so you definitely got to find what works best for you, right? Hey, Brad Egan's back. How's it going, buddy? What mixer are you using? Sorry, I missed it in another vlog, but as I said, late to the party. The mixer that I use is a Yamaha, what is it? MG12XU. So I guess it's a 12-channel mixer. And it's an analog and digital mixer. I don't plug it via USB. I just plug analog into my audio interface, which is a Focusrite. So I go the 2 channels out of the mixer into my just 2 channels of the Focusrite, and that's all I use. And then I just enable whatever channel on the mixer. So right now I've got the Helix enabled, right? So that's going directly into my audio interface. So there, that's going right from the Helix into the mixer, and the mixer is coming out and going into my audio interface, and that's what you're hearing directly. Let's see. Bam Ozzy says, I'm trying to decide if the LT is good enough. Or yeah, well, in my opinion, the LT is definitely good enough, like for me, like for what I do, and I can't. It really depends on your use case. Like if you need all that, the floor unit, the full Helix will have more inputs and outputs kind of routing situations than the Helix LT, but the Helix LT still has 2 send and effects loops built in. It's got all the other, you know, digital and analog audio out. It's got the wah pedal. So to me, it's more than enough, the LT is. So I wouldn't have any reservations on recommending the LT over the full version. So yeah, Adam or Eric is saying that where did I see that? Yeah, it would be bulletproof. Yeah. Last Guitar says they don't weigh as much as those tubes. Yeah, they're a lot lighter than tube amps, but they're a different thing, right? So you definitely would have to, if I had to say something to anybody that's looking at getting one of these, is go to a music store that has them, that has a good return policy, whether that's a 30-day or 15-day or whatever that is. Buy it and then bring it home and really play with it for a few weeks and get to know the unit and tweak it and, you know, give it a good chance. And then once you've gotten about a week or so under your belt with it and you're, you know, playing along and seeing how it sounds, you'll know pretty quickly whether it's going to work for your application or not. So if it doesn't work, you take it back and you're done, right? But it's definitely worth trying stuff out, because sometimes you just don't know, like, until you get it in your environment with your guitars. And you know, some people are very adept at learning this stuff and they can get around it quickly. Some people take a little bit more time. They feel better with, like, I like tactile things like pedals and knobs and all that stuff more. Like, I like having just that knob on the aux here and just turning that and I'm good to go. But I have no problem going into these software things and starting to tweak a little bit. Sometimes I'll have to take a little bit more time with it, but once you get it down and you have your presets set, you don't have to go in there and tweak it every time you play. It's there, right? So you do it once and you're done. I think you can send the audio via USB from the Helix directly into, yeah, you can do that. Bam Ozzy's right. You can take the audio directly out of the Helix from a USB into your PC, and when you load up your recording software, you just choose it under, like, the track. You enable the track in your DAW and you say you want the USB connection or something like that. It would come up as whatever it is labeled that, and you would get directly right from the USB. So it kind of is its own audio interface if you look at it that way. Todd says, what's a good DAW that works with the Chromebook? I don't know. I don't have a Chromebook and I don't know what the specs are on a Chromebook as far as the horsepower behind it. You do want to get something with a fairly good processor if you're going to be running any type of editing software such as recording software, because if you're going to be recording multiple tracks, you're going to be maybe putting some plugins, things like that, you want to have a little bit of processing power. I'm just not familiar with the Chromebook, so I can't really tell you if that would be adequate or not. Let's see. Yep, you still have to work in the config guitar rack or the effects return only use Marshall as a power amp. Yeah, you could use your amp. That's the other thing, right? You can use your actual amp. If you've got an amp like a Marshall or some other combo or whatever it is you have, you can use the Helix into the effects loop, I think, and basically becomes another channel to your amp. I was doing that with I had a Katana for a while, and the way that I was running it is I would run the effects loop from the Helix into that amp, and if I would engage the effects loop, I would be running the Helix through that speaker. So I was just using the power section of the amp, not the preamp section. So there's ways of doing it that way if you want to run it with an amp. Guitar Hack says, so to have a PreSonus with Audio One software, it works great. Yeah, the PreSonus makes some really good stuff. Reaper is free. Yeah, I worked with Reaper for a while and I liked it, but I had access to Studio One and I kind of like the interface more. It's just a preference thing for me. But Reaper is an awesome value. I mean, if it's free, and I think if you buy the full version, it's like $60 or something like that. And I mean, Christ, you can't go wrong with that. Las guitar or use a powered speaker. Yeah, and that's the other thing. You can buy speakers like they're just like a powered PA speaker, and what you're looking for is a flat response speaker. Friedman makes them, Line 6 makes their own, there's some other companies, Mission Engineering makes them, and they're geared for these types of units, right? So you plug your Helix directly into that and the speaker has its own power amp. But what happens with some of those types of speakers is they're flat response, so they're not coloring your tone. The Helix is giving you your tone, basically. It's saying, you know, here's what you're giving me, and this is a fair representation of that sound without coloring it. Sometimes when you plug into an amp or something like that, there will be a little bit of coloration of whatever that amp, you know, is designed to do, like the power section, right? So that's the other thing. I did try, I'll be honest with you, I tried the Helix or the Line 6 powered cab when they came out, and it didn't really do anything for me. I couldn't really tweak it to my liking, so I didn't keep it. But you know, that's just me. I mean, I might have spent more time with it. I might have been able to get it better to my liking. But I did try the Friedman one, the Friedman FRFR cab, and I preferred that because it was more like a real, like it sounded more like an actual guitar cab to me. But yeah, it's just preference. Lots of companies make some really good stuff for this. Indeed. Yeah, I know EVH uses 2 power cabs, and that's the nice thing, you can use 2 cabs or 2 powered cabs and run them in, like run stereo and have stereo effects running through and have a huge sound and a huge field to play with. Hey, Dano from New Jersey, how's it going, buddy? Just got home from work. Wow, you got home late. It's almost 9 o'clock, folks. Oh my god, it's almost 9 o'clock. Yeah, so we're gonna go for another 10 minutes or so and then we'll call it. But yeah, just keep posting your questions and I'm doing my best here to keep up with you guys. Last guitar, I have mine hooked to a Line 6 what is that? Stage source speaker. Okay. You can use regular PA speakers like Yamaha speakers or QSC speakers. Adam, I think it's called Adam. I think they're Adam speakers or something like that. They're really good and they're priced really reasonable and they don't color your sound much. I think that's what they're called, Adams. Look at tone, let's see. Man, this thing is okay, I'm just kind of trying to catch up here, boys. Ready again. Yeah, the chat is moving fast tonight. Nothing wrong with the LT, it's a stellar unit. Yeah, I agree. Don't forget thumbs up. Thanks, guys. Guitar X says, yeah, when I got time, I may try an HX Stomp from Long McQuaid. Yeah, it's definitely worth trying. You might like it and you might not. it's just a matter of preference. And once you get into these things, for me, when I bought mine, I was like I said, I was still just getting back into this, and I just curious, and I heard a lot of good things about it, so I bought it, and I used it for many months, just it alone, and I got familiar with the interface, and I was really happy with the sounds that I was getting and stuff, and it was very convenient to have as a studio tool, so that's why I kept it. But I liked amps and stuff, so eventually bought an amp and got the aux thing going, and so it's just another tool, right? But not everybody's going to buy like an amp and a Helix, but if you had to choose one, you're going to have to try it, right, and decide whether or not it makes sense for you. Another problem is different patches for different guitars. Well, that's the nice thing with the Helix, right? You can definitely set up in the preset bank. You can set up maybe like I've got this one. Like if you look at this patch, well, you can't see the title here, but I don't even know if I can move it. If I move that, yeah, up here it says SG. So I play it with the Lespaul because it's the same type of pickups as my SG, but I set it up per guitar as well. So my Strat will have a different preset that I load up that has maybe a different sounding amp, or maybe the same sounding amp with different settings on the amp, different EQ settings. But yeah, you could, if you have multiple guitars, you could set your sound for each guitar if you wanted to, and really dial it in, right? And EVH says there is an impedance input that you can set per patch as well to match every single guitar. Keep the challenges coming. I have see, yeah, that's the nice thing about this this stuff, right? There is a solution for everything you can throw at it, pretty much. It's really remarkable. What sometimes you'll think of I guess a scenario that you're in, and you say, well, I wonder if I could do that. And then you start thinking about it, and you look it up, and you kind of see, oh yeah, you can do that. If you route this and you route that way, and you turn that on, it does the same thing, right? So you can find out, you know, all kinds of solutions for that type of thing. It's a very versatile tool. Guitar Hack says, you guys are a bad influence. Yeah, I'm not trying to be a bad influence, trust me. I'm not telling anybody you need to buy this and this is the best thing since sliced bread or anything like that. Definitely not doing that. I'm just telling you my experience with some of these tools, and the reason that I get these things is because my purpose in the whole thing of getting back into music was to use a lot of stuff that I had never used before, and as a guitar player, not as a bass player, it's a whole new world for me. And my goal was always to set up a studio environment where I can come in here at any time and I can load up my software to record something, and I feel like playing blues tonight and I want this type of tone. I want to be able to access whatever tools I have in here to get me to that end goal, which is that, you know, that tone, or maybe that sound, or that feel, or whatever that is, whether it's playing this guitar or playing a Strat. That's the reason I got all the tools that I've gotten over the last year and a half or whatever, that I've been kind of putting these things, these puzzle pieces, like I like to call them, together, is to get into a room where I've got all this stuff available to me, and I can just use the right tool for the right situation. And that's why I do it. But you know, it's like everybody's different. You might not need, you know, a Helix. You might just be fine with running straight into an amp and a couple of pedals, and you have your sound and you're completely happy with that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's really, it just depends on what you're trying to do. So again, I'm not trying to be a bad influence or telling people get this and get that. I'm just giving you my opinion and my experience and what I've seen as I've gone through this journey in the past year and a half. And again, I've bought stuff that I thought was really cool, and after a month with it, I'm like, yeah, no, it's not that great. So I've gotten rid of it, or I sold it, or whatever. So there's a lot of trial and error that you do with this stuff, right, to get to a place where you're happy. Laz Guitar says, thanks for your knowledge on the Helix, Eric. Love the Helix Hour. Yeah, Eric has a great show, so anybody that's into especially this type of stuff, go check out EVH Gear TV Network on a regular basis, because you'll get a lot of resources. And Jason's back. All All right, Guitar Hack, you're gonna go practice some tunes. Yes, I'll try to make your gig this weekend. I think you're playing in Bolton. I'm not sure which day, but I'll check with you before then, and if I can get out there and check you out live, I'll do that, because you're not, Bolton is about 20 minutes from me. All right. Again, we'll go for another 5 minutes. You guys good with that? And I have a question for you guys before you go too, so just bear with me here. I'll make my way down the chat to make sure that I didn't miss any of your questions. I see some of you guys asking each other questions. I'll leave that to you to answer. Jason says, I can help you anytime you want on the weekends. We can do offline hangouts. I've done. Yeah, Jason's a great guy for that type of stuff, so definitely. Laz says, okay, you gotta take off. Awesome, thank you for joining us, man. There we go. So again, we're gonna call it very soon. Todd says, that's me, Brian. Guitar, pedals, amps. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, Todd. I think you find what works for you. I believe that once you do that, if it's working for you, you're going to play more. You're going to be more inspired to play than adding all these things that you're, because we're out there online watching all these channels and watching gear reviews and stuff, and sometimes we get it in our own head and we say, oh, I should get that, or look at this, or like it's nice to see this stuff and to maybe be curious about it, but sometimes you just go down a rabbit hole and you end up with all this stuff sometimes that you're not even using or not using to its fullest potential. So if you've got something that's simple, that you really like, and that it does everything you need, you know, there's nothing better than that. I think that's the best solution overall. I mean, but if you're curious and you want to try something different, you add a piece here and a piece there and see if it works for you. And if it does, awesome. If it doesn't, then you know you've always got your go-to formula, whether that be just an amp and a couple of pedals or whatever the case may be, right? Let me go to my other camera here since we're done with that part of it. So here we go. And we're getting ready to wrap up anyway, folks. Dale Palmer, how's it going? Hello, Brian. Good people. Going. So, okay, Bam Ozzy, I'm glad you were able to join us tonight. Hopefully you got a little bit of value out of this stuff, and like I said, I'm only touching the surface of this. If there's a lot more interest in the Helix and the stuff that I'm showing here, I can definitely do some more shows down the road on it and maybe go through more detail and more precise, and let's build a patch from scratch and just kind of go through it and maybe play a little bit more with some of the sounds and the tones from it. A lot of this stuff, it just takes time, right? So if I was building a patch from scratch, we could do it in an hour with no problem. It's just, you know, tweaking it to your liking and stuff. You might want to take a little bit more time. So Dale says those Helix units look really cool. Yeah, they're really cool. They're good stuff. I'm just not that into computer stuff. Todd says, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I hear you. TH3 is an awesome program too. I have THU. Yeah, it's all good stuff, man. All right, folks. I think I've been going along enough, and I hope it was a good live show for you guys tonight. Next week it'll be again 7:30 Monday. So I guess the question I have for you guys before we leave, there's an increasing amount of live streams happening on a regular basis, and trying to pick a time that's going to work for everybody, and you don't want to do too many, you don't want to have too many shows on the same night and so forth, you know, for the community to be able, because at the end of the day you can only watch so much content. You should be out there playing your instrument, practicing and doing other things, right? So the question I have for you is, right now my stream is set for Monday nights at 7:30, and that's been working well. I've done 8 episodes so far, and that seems to be doing well. But I know Ben is changing his show, his Thursday show, to Mondays. In a few weeks he's going to be moving to Mondays at 8. So that's just going to add another show on Monday. So I was thinking either I'm going to move the time and start at 7 instead of 7:30 and go 7 to 8. and then leave at 8 so that Ben can do his show at 8. My shows typically go an hour and a half, so I would have to cut it half an hour at least, and that's fine too. But the other option is to maybe move it to Thursdays and take the spot that Ben was in 8 o'clock on Tuesdays, or maybe 7:30 on Tuesdays or something like that. Maybe leave a comment on this video or our message, or even in this chat, and tell me what you guys think of that. Should I move the show from Mondays 7:30s to Thursdays at 7 or 7:30, or keep it Mondays and just move it up to 7 o'clock, and some days we're going to go into Ben's show if we go an hour and a half, and some days we're going to finish right at 8. It just depends on the content. Like tonight, what we covered, we needed more than an hour to get through it, so sometimes it's hard to just do everything in 1 hour. So let me know what you guys think, if that's cool, because I definitely want some feedback from you guys. The one thing I don't want to get into is, you know, too many live streams and then it gets oversaturated, and I don't know, it's just, we think of that stuff because you want to make it, my whole goal with this whole live streaming stuff and the community that we have here is to provide value and to make it fun for everybody. But if there's one stream right after the other and people don't have any time to breathe, basically, even though the shows are drastically different, like my show is very different than Ben's show, than Hack's show, than Eric's show and stuff, which is awesome. But if we're all doing it on the same night, it's not very good. I mean, people can't join the chat, and it's just, people like that interactivity to be live. It's one thing, you can watch it after the fact, the archive version, but I think a lot of people like to be there live so that they can interact like we've done tonight. So I'm going to take my cue from some of you guys here, and you guys let me know what works best, and then I'll make a decision on what to do. And at the end of the day, I might just keep it on Monday 7:30 is the way I've been going, and you know, if people want to see this show, they'll come here, and if people want to go somewhere else, they'll go somewhere else. So there's no problem with that. I have no problems. I just want to create a show that's going to bring you guys some value, and that we can touch on topics and subjects and things that you're into. So that's all. That's what this is all about. But if we can find a way to do it where we're not flooding the market, let's say, and everybody can get something out of it, I think that's the best way to go. I was even thinking, I guess another couple of minutes for you guys here, I was thinking about creating a website, and basically it can be a portal to shows that we pick out of our community, saying, like, it could be the Guitar Network or something like that, and when you go to that website you have a schedule, and you say, oh, okay, Monday nights at 7 it's this person, and at 8 it's this person, and so forth, and you kind of have a network of maybe 10 shows that you put in there, and it's one place that everybody goes to, and you can see what's happening, and people can, you know, it's just an idea that I was kind of toying with, almost like making it its own network, like CBS. CBS has its own lineup of shows and its roster of talent and so forth, and when you put all that together, it might be a good destination place for the guitar community to kind of go and have access to all of this stuff. But it might be hard to do because there's so much content out there and everybody's doing their own thing. So, but just an idea. All right, so I will, with that, I will call it an evening. It was nice to hang with you guys. I hope it was really good. And yeah, I'm trying to think if I missed anything, but I don't think so. If I come up with anything else, I will let you know. I will go through the chat after I'm done and see if I missed any questions, and if there's anything that I can answer after the fact, I will definitely do that. Make sure to check out all the channels that we have here, like EVH Gear TV is an awesome channel. Check that out. Eric has been doing some great stuff lately, some great interviews. I really enjoy it a lot. And then we've got our regular community stuff that we've got Ben, we've got Guitar Hack. So there's a lot of content for everybody to choose from. So I hope that that you get a lot out of it. And again, find time to just go play. I find myself even sometimes getting into that loop of, oh, who's up next and who's up next, and you keep watching tons of live streams. You forget to sit down with your guitar and actually create some content and some, you know, get better at playing and enjoy the actual craft of playing the guitar. We like to sit around and talk about guitars forever, but at the end of the day, it's about playing and you know, putting the time in and doing what we love. So, all right, folks, with that and that, not rant, but you know, the speech, whatever you call it. Anyway, I'm feeling a lot better, as you can tell, than last week. Last week's show was rough to get through because I was still sick, but I'm feeling a lot better. So thanks for your support, and I will be back next Monday at 7:30. This week I might go live again one of these nights, because I'm still testing some stuff with the mixer and trying some stuff, and I'm still testing out Facebook Live, because there's an interesting stuff that I see, some features there that I might be able to incorporate to some other stuff using that platform as well. So, but I will let you know. All right, folks, thank you and good night.